You want to know how to sound like an expert when speaking on the telephone? This video is for you. There are two things when talking on the telephone. Number one, how you speak, your tone of voice. And number two, what you say, the words you use. Now, how you speak is more important than the words you used. And the most important part of how you speak in the lower portion of your natural voice range. The higher register of your natural voice range communicates uncertainty. The lower register communicates confidence and certainty. Taking uncertainty to the extreme of fear, think of the pitch of the sound one's voice makes when screaming for one's life. Is that high pitch or low pitch? I know if a madman walked into this room right now and a policeman was outside, I would say, "Help, he's got a knife!" I certainly wouldn't say, "Help, he's got a knife." So in general, we use the higher pitch to communicate fear and uncertainty, and the lower register to communicate certainty and confidence. Well, I really don't know, versus the doctor saying, what you need for your condition is an antibiotic called Zithromax. You see the difference. Second, modulate your voice to keep your listener's interest. We don't just drone on in a bass monotone or you'll put your listener to sleep. So modulate your voice. Hi, John. I'm an attorney with ABC Company in Fort Lauderdale. You sent an inquiry on our website. How you doing today? Versus the monotone, John, I'm an attorney with ABC Company in Fort Lauderdale. You sent an inquiry on our website. How you doing today? The questioning tone of voice modulation in the first part of the introduction piques their interest. The sincere, how you doing today, said in a sincere tone shows you really care. So the point is, speak in vocal tones appropriate for the situation. So what words do experts use? Well, first of all, hear your client out. Second, you paraphrase what they told you. Then you gather intelligence by asking questions. Next, you make a recommendation. And I want to give special thanks to Ken Gabler of Walker Sands. They're one of the top companies in the nation that businesses use to promote their brands. I just called his company, and I want to thank him for some of the help with some of the ideas in this video. So here are some of the good transitions to presenting your solution to show you are an expert. What we've seen work for our other clients is, this phrase conveys that you are basing your comments on real-world experience and in-the-trenches results. What you're saying is not just a guess. For clients like you, what we've seen work well is, now this is an improvement over the first one, don't you think? Instead of conveying general expertise, the minor change in wording suggests that you have highly relevant expertise that applies to the audience you are addressing. Expert transition number 3. John, there are 3 ways that people like you typically will address this situation. So by listing out all the possibilities and discussing them in a structured fashion, you convey that you understand the world of possibilities and you know the pros and cons of the varying approaches. Number 4, our research suggests that the best approach for this is, with this phrasing, you convey that what you're recommending is based on your own objective research and that it's not just your opinion. You also convey that you keep up with the data on relevant industry research. Expert transition number 5. George, we find that the best practice is, now best practices are everywhere and people will likely want to hire you as an expert because you know what the best practices are for the task at hand and while they don't. By dropping this phrase into your conversation, you tantalize the audience with the possibility that you are a rich resource for best practices and that you will take them from where they are to where they want to be. Expert transition number 6. Other professionals call me and ask me about this topic, and what I tell them is, the gist of this expert phrase is that it conveys that other professionals out there think you're an expert. Expert transition number 7. We have a methodology for approaching this type of situation. Now, you don't just have an answer, but you have a complete methodology for solving the problem. Now, this certainly conveys expertise, don't you think? You'll hear top consultants talk about their framework, their diagnostic exercises. They use phrases like this because they convey an exceptional level of expertise and experience. If it works for them, it can work for you too. Expert transition number 8. We've seen this result in 96.5% of the cases where this has been used. Dazzle them with numbers. Most people are impressed when people can recite statistics. So whatever you do for a living, find some interesting stats, memorize them, and then pull them out of your pocket whenever you need to look smart. Expert transition number 9. We would recommend X because of Y. There's a lot of research that suggests that using the word because is very effective in persuading somebody to do something. As an expert, you'll want to take advantage of that fact because it works. And finally, expert transition number 10. Let me show you something we did for another client of ours. When making a recommendation and citing yourself as an expert, it is important to have examples ready at hand from your own track record. By showing a specific example of your work and talking through the great results you got, you are giving the client confidence that you can really do exactly what you're saying you're going to do, and you've really been there, done that. Speaking with authority. A big part of sounding like an expert is psychological. You have to own it. You have to play the part. Now, not surprisingly, the way you speak and carry yourself is a big part of whether others will trust you or not as an expert. Now, here are a few helpful hints to speak with confidence. Number 1, say something. To speak confidently, you have to speak. If you're in a meeting and you say nothing, people will assume you have nothing to say and that you are not an expert on the topic at hand. If you're a passive wallflower, you've failed from the get-go to convey yourself as an expert. So do speak up. In every meeting you attend, make a point to say at least 3 smart things. In such settings, you tend to have the biggest impact if you keep it brief and powerful. Number 2, think before you speak. When our professionals call clients, we tell them to envision the words before they speak. The same applies to you. If you rush to respond, you're likely to be less articulate. Construct your thoughts before you say them and do a quick review mentally to be sure you're on the right track. Then and only then can you speak. Number 3, kill the fillers. For many of us, it's hard not to say filler phrases like and when we speak. Just shut your lips. Silence. Fillers can make you sound less confident, which can undermine the expertise you're trying to convey. Number 4, kill the young speak. Beyond and there are specific filler phrases like and you know that instantly convey that you are in your early 20s. You won't hear a 55-year-old baby boomer using 4 times in a sentence. Since age in the mind of many is a proxy for experience and expertise, try to sound older than you are. That starts with not saying and you know. The next time you go into a meeting, try pretending you're 50 and see if that helps. Number 5, never feel inferior. When talking with the CEO, view yourself as the CEO's peer. When talking to anybody senior, for that matter, view yourself as their peer. If you start the discussion with any sense of insecurity, you'll likely come across as being weak, hesitant, and insecure. Now, don't be arrogant, just be respectful and confident. Number 6, slow down. That's one that I have to work on a lot. Experts speak slowly. If you rush through what you have to say, it suggests you're nervous or insecure. Articulate each word and put a very short, empty gap between your words. Number 7, stand up when you speak, or at least sit up straight. Somebody once told me that they were astounded to realize that if they were sitting at a conference room table in a meeting and they stood up before speaking, people seemed to view them as being wiser and more authoritative. Personally, I don't always use this one, but it makes sense that it would work. Number 8, a statement is not a question. Ever hear somebody say something that is an opinion or fact, but they raise their voice at the end as if they are asking a question? In my business, somebody says, I think Salesforce is the best CRM for you, and there's a little annotation peak at the end that makes the statement sound like a question. Now, there is a place for this on an initial cold call like we did at the beginning of this video, but in most cases, experts speak with authority. So in most cases, lower your tone at the end of a sentence and you'll sound more confident. Number 9, record yourself. Just as professional athletes view game tapes after their games, you should grade your performance after you have the opportunity to present yourself as an expert. I recommend recording yourself on your smartphone and then playing it back. Identify opportunities to improve and then apply those improvement concepts the next time you're in front of a client. Number 10, ask others for feedback. Now, some of the best people here after a client meeting say, how did I do? Or how do you think that went? Do you have any suggestions? They are constantly looking for ways to get better. If you work with people who you respect and trust, then ask them for their advice and how they can improve, and they'll be glad to give it. Number 11, study grammar. If I'm listening to somebody, nothing undermines my faith in them faster than a grammar faux pas. For example, a state senator in New Mexico recently had this to say about an adversary. I think both her and the governor are bad for the state. Really? Wow, as soon as you make a grammar mistake like that, you lose your credibility. Read books on grammar and check out some of the amazing grammar websites that are out there. As your grammar improves, so too will your stature as an expert. And number 12, don't overdo it. Nobody likes arrogance or conceit. There's a fine line between being an expert and being a know-it-all. Whatever you do, stay respectful. And finally, what do you do when you don't know the answer? Say you don't know. Nobody knows everything, and people will trust you more if you're just straightforward and say, I don't know. Another way to put that is, I'd like to put a little bit more thought into that, and I'll follow up with you after we're done here. Or there's some good research on that issue. Rather than just responding off the cuff, I'd like to review the research and then circle back with you later. So there are two things you need to do to sound like an expert when speaking to people on the telephone. Number one, how you speak, the tone of voice. And number two, what you say, the words you use. So speak with confidence, use variety, and keep their interest, and remember some of the phrases we talked about here to come across as an expert. This is the Business Guy.